Today we're going to check in on our plants, and I'm going to share 3 of my favorite tips for hydroponic growing on Look Ma, No Soil. Welcome back. My name is Boss. I'm a gardener and a lover of all things spicy. Today we're going to take a quick look at our plants, see how they're doing. They've been in the nutrient solution in their containers for about 8 days now. So there's a lot of good growth happening. Let's go look. All right, you can see these lettuce are doing fantastic, just explosive growth from being in the nutrient solution. It's a little bit loud in here because I have my fan running, but you can see both of those are looking great, very healthy, very, very happy with how those are progressing. The micro dwarf tomato is looking awesome. Also really good growth here. You can see there's quite a bit of leaf growth happening. I will switch this to the Bloom formula nutrient in probably another couple of weeks. Right now it is on grow just to get a nice foliage growth. And here we have our pepper. You can see the pepper is growing more slowly. That's expected for 2 reasons. 1, because it's a pepper. Peppers grow more slowly. It's just how it is. But secondly, this is in the Bloom formula. I did not put it in grow. So there's less nitrogen in this formula, which means I'm not going to see as much leafy growth as quickly. Right now, all of that phosphorus is really helping roots be established. So I'm expecting this one to take off in about a month. So you can see our plants are doing pretty darn good, right? I'm excited to see how fast that lettuce will grow. Usually it takes 5 to 6 weeks for me to have a good full harvest, but you can start clipping some of the outer leaves pretty early. Fresh salad, ready to go in about a month and maybe a little change. That's pretty awesome. We'll check back on the plants again next week just to see how they're doing. But up next, I'm going to share 3 of my favorite tips for hydroponic growing. So my first tip for today is check your pH and check it often. So here we have one of my pepper plants that is growing in Crafty Hydroponics. This plant just turned 2 months old yesterday, 2 months from putting the seed in. You can see it's actually got a ton of flower buds already started. And some of those flowers have opened up. So I'm excited about how fast this is growing because this is a cross that I've been growing for a few years now. This is the F4 generation of lemon drop crossed with red ghost pepper. Really cool plant. I'm hoping to get a couple of generations out of it this year and get it to a pretty stable point. So more to come on that in a future video. The point is, it's 2 months old. I have had it in this container that whole time. I've already had to top up the nutrients a little bit because once it got to flowering, it was thirsty. But because it's been 2 months, pretty good root growth, it's important to keep an eye on that pH. So you don't have to wait for a sign of something being wrong to break out your tools and check to see if the environment and conditions are still good. So what I'm going to do, and I do regularly, at the very least, every time I check the nutrient level, I want to be checking the pH as well. Definitely every nutrient change. And if I see things that look a little funny on my plant, like it maybe is having a deficiency or miscoloration, I will check the pH because there's a good chance that it's just not uptaking nutrients because the pH is off. So here, all I'm going to do, take the plant up, get my pH meter on and ready to read, put it in the solution, and I can read that that's sitting at 6.1 right now. So I'm happy with that. I'm not going to adjust it. It was at 5.9 when I put it in. So that should tell you that it has risen a little bit. I adjusted this about 4 days ago. That's how quickly things can change. You can see a rise of a couple tenths of a point in just a few days, or even more. I've had containers skyrocket. Sometimes temperature seems to play a part in that. Check your pH. Check it often. That's a really important tip for successful hydroponic growing, especially if you have longer growth plants like a pepper. Now, if that pH was too high, I would grab my pH down and add very small amounts, drops at a time, mix it in, and then check the pH before putting the plant back in. As I mentioned in the last episode, that pH down goes a long way with just a tiny bit, so be careful with your containers. Okay, tip number 2, hydrogen peroxide. This is something that every gardener should have, period. If you're growing soil, hydroponic, doesn't matter. Hydrogen peroxide has a ton of great uses in the garden, but in hydroponics, the main reason you're going to find me using hydrogen peroxide is if the roots have been exposed to a little bit of light, they might get algae. And so I have a white lid on here that lets light through. So there's a decent amount of greenening. There's a decent amount of green starting to show up on the top of these roots. So what I've been doing is about once every week or so, I've just been taking 3% hydrogen peroxide. You can buy it at, the grocery store, at the drugstore. I think this costs 99 cents. And I actually just squirt a little right on the roots and let it drip down. Not a lot, just a little at a time. I will also occasionally put some in the container down into the solution so that the roots at the bottom can soak in it. It's also really good for treating root rot. If you happen to get problems where your roots look kind of dark brown and slimy, peroxide can help there. You don't have to worry too much about using peroxide if it's 3% already. You can dilute that if you choose to as well, if you have very sensitive plants. Peppers tend to be fairly tolerant of the peroxide, but other plants might be a little bit more delicate. Don't do it the first time on a plant that is your one and only and just spray it on there like I did here. Use a little caution, see how your plant does. In this case, I know this can handle a little bit of peroxide. It's done a lot. Those roots, I should have taken a video last week. They were like green, dark green, right? So the algae is dying off. I don't want to overdo it either, just because you don't want to risk burning the roots. But the peroxide pretty much just dissipates into water and oxygen in the container after a little bit of time, so not a huge deal. Highly recommend always having a bottle of peroxide handy. Sometimes you'll see a ring of algae on the inside of your container right where the water level is. And again, great use for peroxide. Just squirt a little in the container into your reservoir, and it will help kill off that algae and make your container look a little bit better and your plant not be competing for resources. All right, my third and final tip for today, CalMag. Again, every gardener should probably just keep CalMag around if you're growing anything like tomatoes or peppers, fruiting vegetables. Love them some CalMag. It's kind of a joke in the pepper lovers community where I hang out. Like, something wrong with your plant? Feed it CalMag. Fix it up, no problem. It's kind of true. Of course, it won't fix everything, and it won't be the solution to everything that's wrong with your plant. However, I always add CalMag to my Bloom formula nutrients. I don't usually add it to grow, but when I'm trying to grow a fruiting, flowering vegetable like this pepper, I put CalMag in the nutrients when I mix it up for Bloom. The reason I do that is because the calcium and the magnesium really help with the flower production and the fruit production. Your plant will use up a lot of those nutrients, and if you make a lot available, you'll get a lot of flowers and fruits. So again, you can really see on this plant here just how many flowers are starting to form. There is probably a dozen just on this one little 6-inch branch. All of them seem to be opening, and they look happy and healthy. CalMag is definitely playing a part in the health of this plant, how quickly it's flowering. I am excited for this grow, and so I recommend, again, always have CalMag. You can also make a foliar spray out of CalMag. You just dilute it more, so you use more water than you would if you were feeding it through the roots. But if you ever do spray foliar sprays or feeds of any kind, huge important thing to remember, do that right before lights out or in the dark if you can, and never right before lights are going to come back on or right before the sun's going to come up if you're outdoors. And don't do it in the middle of the day if you're outdoors. Reason being is you're really likely then to get burn on those leaves. The intensity of your light and your sun is magnified by the little droplets, right? So it basically creates a lens, and it just really, it'll burn your plant up. You'll be really sad. Your plant will be really sad. And if you were trying to feed it and make it happy, you didn't. You just killed it. So that's it. Those are 3 of my favorite tips for growing in hydroponics. They're really just some of the secrets I've learned over the years that help make sure my plants do well. There's always still things that can go wrong, and I'll talk a little bit more about those things to be watching out for and careful of before the series is over. But for today, we're going to wrap it up. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. It means a lot. And I will be back next week with a quick update on the plants, and we're going to take a look at a different type of hydroponics just to show you that there are other easy options. Until next time, remember, plants help us grow. Peace.